everybody, I'm Paige McPheely, CEO and co-founder of Base, the first ever software built specifically for you and the work that you do as an assistant. Nearly 10 years ago, I started a remote EA staffing business called 33 Vincent. And during those early years of figuring out how to help our business grow, we spent a lot of time looking into technology and how we could use it to really, truly maximize our leverage as assistants. Of course, the end result is that I stepped away from that business a few years ago to focus on making Base a reality, which is a really fun thing to be able to say. And in the years before that, we just couldn't believe that there was no software built specifically for assistants and got a little tired of waiting for it. So we decided to do it. It's really fun to be here right now. But because of that, it also means that I spend the vast majority of my brain power thinking about how technology can be used to help assistants shine and truly be appreciated as the world savers that they are. So in today's session, we're going to walk through how to leverage technology to its utmost extent. In practice, we believe this means aligning absolutely everything that you possibly can to your executive's goals, whether that's OKRs, which I'll talk about a little bit later, KPIs, you name it, whatever framework that your company, your executive uses, and then using technology as a scalable and intentional way to track progress towards those goals and ultimately help your company to achieve its goals. So first, let's start with defining how technology should work for you as an assistant. So the ultimate goal here is to use technology to even further elevate the support that you provide by enabling you to be as strategy-based as possible. So quick sidebar, this is why I feel so strongly that assistants need their own operating system like Base, but please know that these principles apply to any technology that you use. I'll be using Base as an example. First, let's talk about streamlining your inputs and outputs. We know that you receive an endless stream of inputs from a variety of sources like email, Slack, Microsoft Teams, text, voice memos. We know that many of these are from your executives, but many are likely from other people on your team, maybe potential customers, investors, board members. The list goes on and is likely truly endless. Similarly, your executive is also experiencing a barrage of inputs and outputs. She is dealing with many demands on her time for her attention and is likely trying to please a lot of people whose approval really matters. Because of all this, you're likely extra sensitive to how and when you communicate with your executive. Especially in today's mostly remote environment, it's harder than it's ever been before to make sure that that communication is happening effectively. So given all of this information that's flying every which way, I believe that more than ever, it's crucial that you and your executive define clear and predictable communication pathways. Each of the tools that you use have a clear purpose. Is everyone in your organization or of the people who use the tool, are they aware of this purpose and are they in agreement with this purpose? Assuming each of these tools do have a clearly defined purpose, is there a clear process for how to use this tool, particularly when it comes to the flow of information into and out of the tool? If so, who is maintaining this process? So then if we step back even further, let's think if you and your executive have a clearly defined process for the regular exchanges of information between the two of you. So how does she ask for help with something? How do you get information that you need from her? How about how do you keep her in the loop on projects that are on your radar but not yet underway? Do you have a way to store, track, and update long-term reminders or things that would really surprise and delight her if you remember? Just quickly, a few more questions for you to ponder. How do you stay up to speed and aligned on her goals? Is she progressing towards them? Is she hitting roadblocks? How is that affecting her mindset and general productivity? Is this progress going to affect how she spends her time tomorrow, next week, maybe next quarter? How are you keeping her in the loop on your work? Is she aware of the many things that you're juggling, where you're hitting roadblocks, and the many things that you complete? How do you get information from her? If 10 questions arise throughout the day for her, but she's in meetings all day long, how do you get the information you need? What if it's urgent? What if it'll require her to spend some time thinking it through? What if she only answers 5 of your 10 questions? These are the types of things that we never stop pondering at Base. And these are the questions that we use as fuel to decide which features to build, when to release them, how to share them with you. And I want to point out that the vast majority of the features of Base are built to help streamline the multitude of inputs and outputs that you and your executive are faced with each and every day. We have a tool that acts as a receptacle, so you can send all inputs into Base with one click for easy distribution to wherever they work best for you within Base. We have a tool to house all of the nitty-gritty information about your executives, from children's least favorite food to airline preference to the last time they saw a dentist. options, as I'm sure you know, are very endless there, but important to have a place to store it all in one place that's portable. We have a tool that is a task manager unlike anything you've ever seen before, a task manager built for you, because we know that a task is not always just a task for you. Oftentimes a task on your plate requires input from others, so we've accounted for that. We have a tool that integrates with your tasks and aggregates all of the many questions that arise for your executive throughout the day. So you can house them in one place, along with pre-populated potential responses, and then send them to your executive at exactly the right time, like when you know she'll be walking in between meetings. We have a tool that comes armed with thoughtful templates that makes it easier than ever before to communicate all those tactical updates with your executive, so you both feel completely in the loop and ready to use your one-on-ones as strategic time to tackle your larger goals and objectives. We built each of these tools with the intention of helping you to streamline all of these various inputs and outputs. So rather than being forced to remember things or juggle endless amounts of info in your brain, you can be freed up to focus on what is most critical for your work. Next, let's talk about how to take all of those inputs and outputs and prioritize them in a way that's meaningful and effective for you. So I'm not sure how many of you will relate to this image, but I often think of my assistant, Natalie, as a warrior. It's a little bit cheesy, but this is how I view her. She's a warrior who's fearlessly and endlessly removing obstacles and things that are not mission critical for me, so she can point me like an arrow in the most impactful way. I really do think of this as her job, to clear away the distractions for me and for her so we can both be as effective as possible. But the challenge, real challenge, is that we are each pulled in 1,000 different directions every day. One of the biggest pain points that we hear from assistants is how hard it is to spend their time proactively instead of reactively. It's almost impossible not to react to the multitude of inputs that we receive unless we've painstakingly built clear and predictable guardrails for how to handle them. So how can any of us be expected to prioritize our time effectively if we're constantly under a barrage of new information, new requests, shifting priorities? And we've heard from many of you assistants that you spend hours per week or sometimes hours per day organizing briefings or updates, searching through inboxes, managing inboxes, digging through Slack, communications. What if you could have that time back? And what if, because of how you've processed that information, it's clear how to use the time that you've gotten back to be a strategic partner to your executive? So this is where we get to my favorite part of this discussion, the surprise and delight section of this session. We know for a fact, because we've studied it, that businesses are more successful when they lean into impactful delegation, when they view their admin team as strategic partners who are integral to the achievement of their organizational goals and objectives. This is really, really important. So as we look at how can you tactically achieve this, I'm going to do a slightly deeper dive into two of the tools that I mentioned earlier, Decision Stream and Digest. So first, Decision Stream. This is the tool I mentioned that integrates with your tasks and aggregates all of the many questions that you might have for your executive throughout the day. You can house them all in one place. You can pre-populate potential responses and then send them to your executive at exactly the right time. So thankfully, gone are the days with Decision Stream when you ask your executive to decide between two options and she responds with a simple but unhelpful yes. I know that all of you have experienced this. I know I certainly have, and I am sad to say I've probably done it to my assistant too. But with Base's Decision Stream, you can give your executive clear options for responses. You get instantly notified of her answer and can seamlessly act on next steps all within Base. And because Base is a platform for your eyes only, there are no executive logins, you get to decide how, when, and where you share this information with your executive. You can drop it directly into Slack or text, which is what my assistant does if something is a little bit more time sensitive, or send it all together as part of your daily communication. So that's what she does for the non-urgent decision streams that she has for me. And that actually leads me perfectly to Digest, the tool that I mentioned earlier that helps you to effectively communicate with your executive. So with seamless integrations with whatever calendars you use, task managers within Base, Decision Stream, and effortless inclusion of links and attachments, and not to mention simple, truly beautiful formatting, you can send, just like Decision Stream, your digest, your updates, whatever you want to call them, wherever and whenever works best for your executive. It's truly never been easier to make sure your executive has the information that they need. And it's also never been less time consuming to get this information from them. Many of our users are dropping upwards of 5 tools now that they're using Digest because it's so streamlined. Build in templates, build in ways for you to automate and save time. And that's exactly what Base Digest does. But the other thing too, if you're not sending any sort of daily update like this, we know that it's not something that's commonly asked for by executives, but when they start receiving them, they don't ever want to live in a world without them. In fact, our data shows that executives who receive a daily digest from their assistant feel more deeply supported, they feel more strategic in their own role, and feel that their assistant is a more strategic partner than without the digest. I encourage you to sign up for our 30-day challenge. In this challenge, you'll be tasked to do 2 things: send a daily digest based off one of our tried and true daily digest templates, and send a weekly decision stream with 2 mission critical questions for your executives. These you can tailor, the digest and the decision stream, you can tailor very, very easily, but we get you started with some recommendations based on what we've seen work really well. My assistant and I iterated on our current digest template here and there for the better part of 6 months. And that's a good thing. It meant we were talking about how to best make the information work for us. It also meant that we were both open to feedback and to working towards optimization. So one thing that really helped us get to where we are now is the integration of our shared OKRs. So OKRs stand for objectives and key results. And I know I've referenced them a couple times in this chat, and some of you, probably most of you, are familiar with this, but I know that not everybody is. It's one of the most popular goal setting and tracking frameworks that's out there right now, but I know there are many. I'm not here to praise one over the other, but I will use OKRs throughout this session since it's a framework that we utilize at Base. Let's jump into really using technology to help you elevate the support that you provide by empowering you to be more strategic. So one quick thought on OKRs, just so you understand the framework for them. They're typically set at an organizational level and then cascade down to each team or department and then individuals from there. So the company will have a specific objective that it would like to accomplish over a set period of time, say a quarter, and usually 2 to 4 key results that are tied to that objective. And those key results help to measure whether or not the objective was actually achieved. And then each one of those key results cascades down and converts into an objective for the relevant team or department that it corresponds to. And they in turn assign key results to that objective, and the cascade continues from there. While this is not a rule, we don't often see assistants deeply integrated into OKR accountability within their organization. But we've got a hypothesis, one that we've proven pretty substantially. Assistants are the secret weapon to actually achieving OKRs. A company's quarterly objectives are typically accessible by anyone within the company and present a truly amazing greenfield for an assistant to identify which OKRs they're most closely able to influence, likely the OKRs of your executive or their teams, and then base their role, their communication, their questions for their executives, how they schedule meetings, how they communicate with others on these specific OKRs. Bonus points for anybody who can figure out what within the OKRs you can actually take over for your executive. My assistant Natalie is a great example of that, where sales and fundraising are key parts of my role. And so she'll take over all of the follow-up. And so she's standardized the processes for it. She's built templates for it. So now I get to really focus on being prepared for meetings and showing up for meetings and making sure that I'm representing my best self, and she can handle the rest of it. So in tandem with a solid communication strategy around all of this, around your role, tying your role to OKRs or to the objectives of your executive and the organization is without a doubt the best way to not only blow your executive away, but to solidify yourself as a true strategic partner that they never want to lose. I think when I look at executives who have true strategic partners in their EA, I think they'd rather lose their CFO than their assistant, because that person is so integral to their success. And so by baking your OKR framework into your technology framework, you're giving yourself goalposts by how to measure your success as well. And this is how we future-proof and recession-proof our roles. Many of us were hit very hard over the last 6 to 8 months, and some of us lost jobs. And there will always be things that lead to layoffs, but I know the way that we protect our roles and we actually grow our industry in the next 10 to 15 years is going to be by becoming even more strategic partners to our executives than we are now. And so if we can directly tie our efforts to the bottom line, to the success of our business, this is how we find that long-term success. Tying into that, it's that time of year again when many of you are likely preparing for your annual reviews. It's also that time of year when most organizations are laying out their objectives for 2021. So I encourage you to think big about how you can be a part of this. Come to your annual review armed with specific action items for how you'll support the 2021 objectives, specifically within your role as an accountability partner and as a gatekeeper for your executives. So BASE is quite literally built to help you do this as efficiently as possible, but there are many, many ways to do this effectively. So regardless of how you move forward with this, it's important to remember the best technology tools not only give you more time in the day, but they also help you to elevate your game. This is one of those things that we really, really encourage you to take initiative versus asking, can I help? Is there something I can do? I will say a caveat that I know you know your executives better than anyone, but far and away, we hear executives feeling so deeply supported and seen when their assistants take initiative to help get OKRs across the finish line. Putting on my executive hat for a moment, when Natalie takes a stab at something that she believes will help me, whether that's saving me time or maybe creating more brain space for me, making me more effective, I'm always happy. It doesn't mean we don't sometimes have to iterate on her first proactive efforts, but I am 1000% never not thankful for her strategic and thoughtful support. And I'd venture to guess that most of your executives would feel the same way. Okay, so OKRs, big, hefty topic. We spend a lot of time talking about them, how to integrate into your role, how to communicate with your executive about them. If you'd like to explore this topic more deeply, we have a number of resources available to you. As a first step, check out our OKR workshop that we recently hosted in our community on Facebook. We bring in an OKR expert and he walks us through how to do this, how he's seen it done well in organizations. And from there, our community is a great resource, our website and our team. We're all here and happy to help. It's really, really important to remember that all of this, communication, optimization, and technology are constant works in progress. There is no ideal tech stack, no ideal schedule, no ideal workflow. As you know, the role of the assistant is one of the most nuanced, subtle, intimate, crucial roles in the world. You each bring your unique skill set, outlook, preferences, and backgrounds into your role, and each executive that you support does the same. And what sets you apart from the average assistant is a willingness to learn and to adapt. In today's ever-evolving world, technology is an inescapable part of it. We will all spend large parts of our days interacting with technology, so it only makes sense to make that technology work for us. So finally, I encourage you to advocate for yourselves here. While we'll still need to use at least a small handful of tools throughout our role, you should get a say in which tools work best for you. Most executives are at a loss for how to support you in your role and in your professional development. So if you come armed with a list of what tools you think will work best for you and why, like maybe they're saving you time or making you more effective, 9 times out of 10, your executive will want to help you. Sadly, I know this is not a universal truth, but more and more, we really are seeing this as the norm. And then taking it up even a level higher, many organizations are not always sure how to best support their admin teams. I know because they ask us how to best support their admin teams. So advocating for the technology and the processes behind that technology with well-reasoned arguments can go a long way, especially when it comes to taking steps towards standardizing the communication to and the support of their executive leadership team in a meaningful way. So if you work with other assistants and you can get together and say, hey, here's how we want to use whatever tools that you recommend together as a team and collaborate on them, provide more seamless support to our team. I think that most companies are going to be hard pressed to say no to that. So if you or anyone else on your team would like to further explore this with me, please shoot me an email at Paige, Paige, at basehq.com. I truly do care deeply about supporting you in your role, about seeing you celebrated for the world-changing work that you do, and want to be a resource for you however I can. That's it for today's session. I'm so grateful to each of you for joining me today and hope to see you again soon. Cheers.